What's going on,
Shout out,
audience?
guys. Hello.
All right, we are
Shit.
live. We are recording. We're good to go.
Okay.
All
Awesome.
right.
It's all starting off. First time doing the start off. Thank you for this honor, Kim.
That's okay.
So welcome in everybody to this special episode of Avatar Origins: Tales from the Fan Base. I'm Rico, along with my co-host Momo and a tall Earthbender, and we want to say thank you to Avatar Discord for allowing us to use your platform again for this special conversation. So tonight, our guests are heads of the Red Dragon Kung Fu Academy, Sigung Manny Rodriguez and his son Sifu Joshua Rodriguez, both instructors of the Chuka Southern Praying Mantis Kung Fu system. So welcome and thanks for your time to talk to us.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so before we start, let's get the etiquette going. So for those of you who don't know, Sigung means Grandmaster, Sifu means Master. So we're going to be addressing Manny as Sigung, while we will be addressing Joshua as Sifu. So basically, if I became a student of their academy and the teacher is giving me the lessons, I would be addressing him as Sifu. But let's also remember the Sifu also has a teacher prior. So basically, think of it as this way: if you were to address your father as dad, you would be also addressing his father as grandpa. So that's
Yeah.
basically how the formalities and the etiquette works in the Chinese martial arts schools. Okay? So, now that we got that cleared, let's get the show going on. Are you ready?
Yep.
Yes, we are.
All right. So I guess I'll start with the first question. Since I've already introduced you guys, can you please share a bit about your martial arts background? Both of you. This is for both of you.
Okay, well, I started martial arts when I was quite young. My mother got me involved. I was like 7 or 8 years old, and it started in Manhattan, actually Spanish Harlem. And there was a program called Summer in the City. And my mother sent me off with a bunch of judo guys to Jerome Mackey's Judo on 50, I believe it was 56 or 57th Street off of Lexington Avenue. And my martial arts career basically took off from there. And my uncle, Emilio, was also a combat instructor during the Vietnam War. And he also gave me his original judo uniform. So my beginnings was in judo before it started into karate and taekwondo. And that was in the very early years of my life.
Okay.
And then kung fu, I actually started doing kung fu when I moved to the Midwest. My father was transferred out of Kennedy Airport to Chicago O'Hare. He was one of the guys that worked maintenance on Air Force One, so the central hub changed. And that's how I ended up in the Midwest, actually Hoffman Estates, Illinois. And at that point, I wanted to continue my martial arts. It was in a small town, and I found a kung fu master in, of all places, a Chinese restaurant called Ho Luck. And that's when I started learning from the old man. My first kung fu style was white eyebrow, bak mei, they say in Cantonese. That's like a good synopsis, I think.
All right. Cool. Sifu, how about you?
When I was younger, I learned a little bit of 8-step praying mantis and taekwondo. And fun fact, my father is actually my adoptive father. There was a rough time in life where my mother actually had to give me up, and she brought me to the kung fu school and said, "I can't take care of my son anymore. Could you take care of him?" And my father didn't know me at all. I was just like a 13-year-old kid, and he took me in, and then that's when I started learning Southern Praying Mantis and kung fu from my father.
Yeah, he's legally adopted.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
It's family.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's family regardless. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna go in the pattern here. So, Tall Earthbender, do you have a question?
Oh, you would start with me first.
Earthbending, right?
You know something? Sigung Manny and Sifu Joshua, I was always curious about something in the Avatar universe. And I just never asked the question. I didn't ask Mike and Brian. I didn't ask the directors or assistant directors. I didn't ask Sifu Kisu about it. But I want to ask you guys about it. When Toph Beifong does this extension with her fingers in her stance, what exactly does this stand for? I've always been curious about that. I always thought it was cool. What does it stand for?
Well, this is called a hak ni sao in Cantonese, and it's called beggar's hand because the style originated in the north and came to the south. Hakka means guest tribe or guest people, and they had to travel and to get away from the war of the Ming Dynasty against the Manchurians, and that was roughly 1336 time period and it didn't come to an end until 1644. So the people, the royal family, and the people in the indigenous northern area where the Manchus were taking over were running away from the war. This is common in history, no matter when this happens. So basically, the northerners ran away to the south, and they brought with them their martial art. And because they were basically carpetbaggers, begging everywhere, their main martial arts on guard position was the beggar's hand. So they were begging for food or mercy or water or whatever it was. So the whole on guard system was this beggar's hand, and that's hak ni sao, right? Beggar's hand, and that's why it always opens up with the beggar's hand. That's indicative to the system. No matter what family of southern praying mantis, they'll always use the beggar's hand.
That is very interesting and deep. Now, it makes me pose the question, and I'm not going to ask it now. We're going to save it for later, but in the back of your mind, I want you to have this prepared. If that indeed is the beggar's hand, and Toph Beifong is one of the richest family in all the rings of Ba Sing Se, I wonder why she was utilizing that particular style.
Well, because her family would have immigrated from the north, and many of the royal family escaped the persecution from the Manchus. So you had many of the people were wealthy business people. They were blue bloods. They were related to the royal family and stuff. Were escaping. So it makes sense. And they were highly educated people, a lot of them. Not all of them were just farmers and the like and boat people. They became that.
In fact, the specific branch we do, Chu Ka, was actually the system that the royal family did. Because Chu was the surname.
Yes.
Of the royal family of the Ming Dynasty, yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that insight.
Yeah. And I have a close relationship to that because my family escaped from Cuba during the communist takeover and came to the United States. So I'm first generation born here in the United States. So I kind of relate to the story, if you know what I mean.
Another thing, too, about the system, which also relates to the character of Toph, right? Because she's blind, she can't see. The system is used in a close to medium range, right? So it utilizes a lot of sticky hands. And in this, the on guard allows the opponent to come in so you can capture and trap and then fight from the inside.
Okay.
It's like that.
I love it.
Point of contact feeling thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Lobo, do you have a question?
I do. I would love to kind of pivot and talk a little bit more about your experience with working with Mike and Brian, the creators in Avatar, and like how much input did they provide? Did you have the freedom to design like top spending movements? This is a question from one of our fans, Avatar Yang Chen. So I wanted to kind of like just get your
how it went was that Brian would, I would have the script and he would say, how do you envision this style used by Toph? And then I would create and say, okay, it would move like this. according to my interpretation. And then that was taken, and we did a couple of variations off of that, and that's how that happened. And that's the way it was every single time. And then, of course, then the artists would have their own interpretation, and they would video me and my son, and Scott Logan was also another student of mine, was involved in the process as well. So I worked mostly with Mike and Brian, and we would discuss things, different elements of the style. And like I said, I would review the script and the actual scene, and then it was my interpretation that went from that point on.
You can actually see a little bit of that in the documentary Avatar Spirits.
Oh, yes.
You can actually see my father showcasing application and movements at the Burbank studio. And I think you even did an application on Brian, right?
I think it was Brian, yeah.
So,
it's been years ago.
I've seen that video time and time again.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So that was my interview to see whether or not the style and I was going to be workable for the project, and it went very well. It was very successful, especially since the system relies on feel, and I demonstrate that in the interview. And since it's a blind character, it makes sense.
That's amazing.
Yes.
That another follow-up question to that, like, how did Mike and Brian seek you guys out? Like, what was that point of contact like? What was your initial thought?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. What happened is that Sifu Kisu, who has been a friend of mine for many years, I actually know his Sifu from the Long Beach International competitions, Sifu Huey, Northern Shaolin. And Sifu came and asked me one day, how would you like to work on a project involving your system, your Kung Fu? And I said, well, sure. I never did anything like that. And he then brought me to meet Mike and Brian at this house, somewhere in Hollywood, Bel Air or whatever. There were cables laying all over the place. And they showed me drawings of the character and explained a little bit where they were at that moment. And it was Kisu's idea to use this system for the character, because he had touched hands with me many times before. He'd known me for years, and he knew it was a style that used the sensitivity of the body and timing of sticking and stuff, so that he thought in his mind that it would be a perfect system for this particular character. And he was right. And so that's how I was introduced to Mike and Brian. It was through Kisu who brought me over and introduced that. If it wasn't for him, the character wouldn't have done, Toph specifically wouldn't have done any Chuka Southern Praying Mantis.
That is awesome. That is so cool.
Yeah, it's an interesting play of things that happened, It's like, but it was Kisu who came up with the idea of using this particular system and using me.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Rico, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, it kind of did answer the question I was gonna ask, but this is a combination shout out. This is a combination of what I was gonna say, as well as a shout out to another two members of the audience, by Boomer Ostro and Raiden23. So now, while most of Earthbending is based off of rooted Southern systems like Hungar or Hunkin, which uses solid stances and footwork as their foundation, like stances, cross stances, forward stances. Yes, every practitioner's frenemy, to say the least. Along with the animal systems like your dragon, the tiger, leopard, snake, and crane. Toph's Earthbending is specifically based on what you both practice, which is the Southern Praying Mantis system. Now, can you explain the core principles of the Praying Mantis system and why it was a good fit for Earthbending?
Okay. First of all, you have to understand that the system came out of Shaolin Temple. Okay, so its roots are Shaolin because, as the legend goes, the brother of the emperor was the one who created the system originally. I mean, there's many stories, shrouded in history and all different kinds of legends that they have. But so the 5 animals are included in Southern Praying Mantis. You have to understand that. Except the system is a specialty system that was specifically designed to counter the known systems. That's why when it was created, you notice that we use a left style stance and a right upper body posture. In other words, like La Jolla or like Tyson and Lomachenko, the famous boxers, I don't think I have to give them any credit, right? They're so world famous. They fight with the right foot in front
And the right hand.
and the right hand in front, right? Because this gives them a distinct advantage over the opposite of the left foot in front, and then the right hand out, because there's a distance and power equation that's happening and speed of motion.
There's also an angulation too, because besides the Southern Mantis, I also do boxing, right?
Yes.
And so since the Kung Fu system that I do is right lead, I fight right lead in boxing as well, even though I'm right-handed. And that gives me a distinct advantage against most people. They have left lead because I'm able to take specific angles and have my power hand leading, right? So that's that's basically the same idea of why Southern Mantis has the same thing going on.
And also, as I was trained, I should tell you, Southern Praying Mantis, the Chuka system, doesn't have anything to do with the actual insect, okay? Because when the persecution started, right, it was basically a shorthand system that had the original 5 animals in it, because you have the tiger pull, you have snake, wonton, chambiu, all the traditional motions that were modified into a close infighting system. During that time period when they were escaping, they took the name Southern Praying Mantis to hide from the Ming persecution. So like when we would do a step up thrusting hand parry, was Mandong Sao, right? This kind of a motion. At the end, like my teacher taught me, he says, do this, right? And I would say, well, why am I doing that? He says, because then they think you're doing a mantis style, but you're not. So there was these like movements in the system to mimic Northern Mantis, but it has nothing to do with the Mantis. It's strictly a shorthand fighting system that has its roots in the Shaolin Temple. Then, of course, as the millennia and we were talking about 600 to 800 years, as they further moved south, they adapted techniques from the the local systems. Things change over time, language and everything else, right? So that's the original thing. It's like there was no mantis, praying mantis in the system originally. That's something that came later as they disguised the system so they wouldn't get arrested as connected to the Ming royal family. I'm too close. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
I hope that makes sense. Was I clear?
That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. Toph, you're up.
Okay. This question is for Sifu Joshua. So your average athlete, they play their sport, and they love it. And in the midst of their moment, when they're on the field or any given field, they're screaming, "I love this game," and they want to play it forever. Case in point, LeBron James, who just won't retire, right?
Yep.
So, Sifu Joshua, with you continuously learning the variations of martial arts, what is it that keep you going? Like you've been doing it for so many years.
Yeah, I've been doing it for about 20 years now.
What drives you? What keeps you going in this?
Honestly, for me, it's the love of it itself. I've always enjoyed martial arts ever since I was a small child. Like when I saw my first Bruce Lee movie, like most of us, right? And I always had that drive to want to learn. And then when I finally started learning and I got into it, it's just I can't put it any other way. Just the love of what it is. wanting to get better than I was the day before, to perfect what I have, right, and to see how far I can go. So
I'd like to add to that. It's when his mother first brought him to me and said that she couldn't take care of her son and wanted me to take care of her son. Mm-hmm. She had mentioned at that point, if you remember, that her son wanted to master Kung Fu. Mm-hmm. And he had wanted that since he was like, I
think it was 6 or 7.
Yeah, since he was a little kid, and then I met him when he was like 13, you know what I mean? 12, 13 years old. So it continued. That love was already in him. It's
and what keeps me going is, like I said, just the love of it itself. You know what I mean? Like, whenever you have a passion, I don't care what it is, music, art, you have to love the thing itself if you want to keep on going. Otherwise, you can come to resent it. Because you might be going into it with the wrong ideas, the wrong expectations, right? It should always be, like I said, it doesn't matter what it is. Love the thing itself, and you'll never be disappointed.
In my case, it's Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Before you know it, 18, 20 years passed, and I'm still, I'm still wearing the shirt. I got books, and it just won't stop. And sometimes I ask myself, like, you must really love this show and what this show means, because this show has changed a lot of people.
Oh yeah,
like, I've met a lot of people, and I've met Rico. He's all the way from another country, and then Momo's across the coast, and it just brings everybody together, and that's what I love about it. It's a variation of family.
Well, and that's the thing too. It ties back into the love of the thing itself, right? Like, we might have different reasons for loving a thing, but it's that you love the thing, right? So it keeps you going forward, right? Because if you didn't love the base thing itself for what it is, you wouldn't keep going. It would be just a passing interest, right? So
I have a question.
Momo, you're up.
So this was actually a follow-up question to what Nadar asked, and then I have my own question. But did working on Avatar change the way you viewed your fighting style and how you taught it?
Well, that's a really interesting question. It's the first time I've ever been asked that. What it did, it made me get very introspective inside myself. It made me analyze the system so deeply because, first of all, I have to confess, I didn't watch anime or any of that kind of stuff until I got involved with the project. My son, on the other hand, comes from the generation where, it's very popular and they do that kind of stuff. But what happened was that I understood my system pretty well, but after working on the project, I had to go so in depth into the system in order to do the correct choreography or to come up with ideas that were so deep into the system that had I not been involved with the Avatar project, I don't think I would have ever went as deep as I did, because it was a necessity at the time, but then it became a love, and I was like, wow, look at how the body can be manipulated to increase the power and express it. It's sort of like being a music major, because that's what I was in college, and analyzing like Beethoven or something, or Tchaikovsky. And so I was analyzing the system in order to bring it to the screen, to bring it to life in its animation. And that required really digging deep into my knowledge of the system. So yes, it had it brought me up several notches for sure. Yes.
This is incredible. I'm having a blast. And this kind of leads right into the next question I had. I hope that's okay. But it's kind of getting into more of like Toph's bending forms. And so, how did Chugar kind of evolve when she learned metal bending? And then there's some speculation in terms of like lava bending, which is based off the Bajikwan style. So do you think her being a Chugar practitioner, can she also pick up lava bending pretty easily as she did with metal bending. Kind of like all the different.
Well, when you say
styles.
Baji, the Baji system is also a northern system that uses a lot of the same power elements that we do. Okay, it's the stances are a little different, but the explosive power, what I would call the springy explosive power, or Tangjing He, is evident in the Baji system. The most powerful northern style is the Baji, and the most powerful now in the so-called South is the Southern Praying Mantis, because we do the same kinds of things. So now, when you talk about earthbending, metal comes from earth. You don't get metal unless you get the ore, which is in the rock, and it has to be purified and pounded into metal, right? And funny thing, this, I don't think anybody would have thought of this. It just so happened by itself, is that we use metal in a lot of our training. We have iron rings. We use what we call the jade yoke, an iron bar or a pipe filled with BBs to roll on what we call bridge training.
Yeah, to condition the bones and the forearms to smooth them out, make them stronger.
Yep.
And at the same time, when you're doing the Tangjing, you have to be loose and very liquid and then fire the force out. So that's like, you can see how that's related to lava.
Well, like one of the translations of Tangjing is eruption force.
It is eruption force, yeah.
Wow.
So you bring everything in and then it explodes out, right? So that's how it was taught to me. It's a condension and explosion like a volcano. So we used to call it eruption force, it's the best English translation at the moment, at that time.
So it's a, I mean, absolutely. I think she could, especially if the creator said she can. So
yeah, right.
It's ultimately always up to them. But if you go by the martial systems they used, since there's correlation, I would say yeah. So
yeah, it was really interesting. They were very clever, very smart, and they thought it all out. And Kisu was involved in a lot of that kind of decision making at that point. So he had an understanding of the system, and also Brian was also became Kisu's student. So he was involved in training in martial arts during the creating of the system and the ongoing of the system.
Incredible. I want to thank Dr. Dishonor and Boomer Astro for those questions. Those were asked by some of
excellent questions.
Excellent questions. Absolutely. Go ahead, Rico.
Okay, so this is a question for Sifu Josh.
Yes.
So what I love watching on your posts on Instagram is that you show a comparison of the applications and the techniques used in a self-defense scenario, followed by clips of the show where it displays either Toph or Aang bending Earth. Do you think the show accurately represents the essence of martial arts, even in a fantasy world like Avatar: The Last Airbender?
I would say absolutely, with caveats, because of course, when storytelling, you do what you do what's in service of the story, right? So sometimes we do things because the rule look cool, things like that, right? But a lot of times when they're showing the more like actual martial movements, I would say absolutely. It's just you're taking the application from the close and putting it way far away. So
yeah, I was just gonna say.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that is that what was unique about the Avatar project is that they actually depicted real Chinese martial arts, where they did some in the other animations like Hadouken and stuff like that, which is a lot of fun, right? But when they depicted the Fire Nation, the Earth Nation, and all that, the water, they actually used real Kung Fu martial arts. It was obvious to anybody who had studied any length of time, from beginner to advanced, that you were looking at it and it was like, wow, that was correct. So that was unique to at that time. I think it was the first, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was the first
Western cartoon.
Yeah, the first cartoon that depicted Western, that actually depicted authentic Chinese Kung Fu.
And to go off of what you're talking about with the Instagram post, one of the posts I did that actually illustrates that pretty well is there was the post where Toph is on the Fire Nation ship, and she encases herself in the metal armor.
Yes.
And she's rolling on the ground and doing the kicks and things. And what that's known as ground boxing. And so all those movements, like when she drops back and she kicks up and it shoots the guy up, like I showed in the application for that, you're kicking up and you're hitting someone. Yep. And fun fact about that scene, those movements that she does was actually me. So,
really?
Yeah, they actually filmed me doing the ground boxing. Yeah.
Wow.
Nice.
Incredible.
The name of the form for that is Fei Lungar.
Yeah, flying dragon leg.
Yep. Yeah.
I have a
you heard it here first.
Yeah, because when I remember seeing that intro, I was like, oh, wait a second, I know this move. Oh, I recognize this. Oh, he must be from this system, from this school. It's mind-boggling, too. I am fanboying out, because that's what it is. But, yeah.
I have a spicy question, if I can interject.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, real quick. We're talking about how like Avatar and The Last Airbender is the first Western cartoon with actual martial arts. How do you think the live action Netflix or even the movie, how did they square up?
I haven't really watched the Netflix show yet, so I can't comment on that myself. I've seen some clips, and from what I've seen so far, it's a lot better than the live action movie. I'll put it that way. So.
What was wrong with the live action?
We tried to find a path. I tried to find a pathway into working on that project, but I came against brick walls.
There was a. Yeah.
just as it is, because I was hoping that I would be able to work on the project and train people to move authentically in Southern Praying Mantis, but that didn't come to fruition. But like my son said, the live action movie, I think since it won the Razzie Award, I think it speaks for itself.
There's the Netflix show that have martial arts choreography. Mm-hmm. That movie they had dance choreography.
Yeah, I know what it was.
So you can see the difference. So nothing against dance, right? Dance is really good, but
especially yeah.
He took too much liberty at trying to put his own mark on it. That was his director I'm speaking of. Yeah. So,
it's
Paul, do you have a question?
Sorry, real quick. It's interesting because Toph appears in the season 2 of the Netflix version, and so it's going to be really interesting how they're going to incorporate their Toph's bending styles in a real world capacity with somebody who probably does not have experience with Trugar.
Yeah, and that was why it was one of my. I really wanted to work on the project to be able to train people to move authentically like they did in the original Avatar project.
That's Hollywood.
Yeah, well, when the movie came out, what's his name? Shyamalan. Yeah, Shyamalan said that nobody could be trained to move that way, which is a lie.
He also said there was nobody in the Southern California area.
Which was a
BS because we were here, and then Sifu Kisu was living here at that point in time as well.
Right. So we were cut off because he wanted to make a name for himself, but proof to wit, if you look at the videos that we have been producing lately, where actually people are moving exactly like that. I mean, you can't say you can't teach someone how to move like Southern Praying Mantis. I mean, that's ridiculous. So I kind of wish that I would have made a headway into the project, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. All right, I'm done. That's all. Earthbending.
Sorry, man. Sorry, we're just so excited about this, but go ahead, man.
Okay. Sifu Joshua. Quick question. The True Guard fighting style, you're all familiar with it, yes? Okay, you know it well. So
I hope so after about 20 years. So
okay, silly question. So
that's not a silly question. So
this next one is, who taught you, and was your instructor hard on you?
Oh yeah. My father would I'd be forced to get up at like 4 or 5 in the morning and do various things.
That sounds like something Tenzin would do.
Like I went through some pretty hardcore old school training. So
I can tell you that Scott Logan and my son Joshua were living with me at the time, and they both approached me and said they wanted to master the system. And I told them that I didn't want them to end up like me. So I said they had to at least get their associate's degree in college. There was going to be no serious dating for 2 years. After that, if they want to continue college, if they want to do whatever it is, they want to stop, that's fine. On top of that, I went back to school with them. And we went in as music majors. And we would show up at Ventura College, and it would be at 5 o'clock in the morning. We'd walk there, and they were just opening up the building, and we would train in the music room, then take a nap on the tables, and then go through school, and then at lunchtime train in between our classes. My son can play classical guitar.
And then after that, once after school is done,
then there was teaching and training.
So
and they would get up at 4:30 in the morning. And I would make them do hard qigong, heikong, right, in Cantonese. Big snake turns over. And it was really intense, and I'd be screaming at them. And it got so bad that the neighbors would started screaming at me, "Shut the F up!" And
I love it.
It got so powerful that at one time before he made his breakthrough, my son, his legs actually went dead and collapsed, and he fell on the floor from a horse stance.
Yep.
So what he was doing was that you start off with 10 and then add 1 a day to 36.
Well, and you're in a low horse stance the whole time.
The whole time to 36, and then from there you keep adding 1 a day till you get to 100, and then you do 100 for 10 days. Then you cycle back down to 36. So it takes a whole year to do this.
And when you get to about 100, you're in a horse stance for about an hour.
Yes.
So
yes, he went through very, very intense training.
So rule of thumb, guys, if you're going to be learning martial arts, be prepared for hell.
Oh yeah. That's why I always make a joke. You have to be a slight masochist.
Yes. This is why I say
training is very hard. It's a very common amongst Chinese kung fu masters when the student asks. This is the old days. It's not a commercial thing, but if you learned the way my son learned, the question they would ask in Chinese is, "Can you eat bitter?" And what they mean is, are you willing to make the sacrifice to be able to learn this?
Yep. Can you eat bitter before you taste sweet?
Yeah.
That's the full saying.
Yeah. Can you eat bitter before you taste sweet? Yeah.
Better work.
So it's the same thing. Like we learned to play classical guitar. I was a voice major and a guitar major. I mean, you go through the same thing in any art. Like if you want to be able to play an instrument really well and you want to make that living, you're going to go through that same expression. Can you eat the bitter before you taste the sweet?
It's anything in life that you want to do well.
Yep. Okay.
Outstanding.
Yeah. All right. So my next question is, which real-world martial artist or present reminds you of Toph Beifong? This is
in which way do you mean reminds? Do you mean in the sense of like moves similar or personality wise?
Let's say both.
Both.
Disability.
Well, besides my father, of course, and me, since we do the system. That's a hard one.
I was going to say that's a hard one.
Yeah. Because there are certain fighters that the systems they use, or they did use, utilize similar concepts. Like we brought up before, Lomachenko, the boxer. If you actually watch Lomachenko, even though it's boxing, so of course it's in a different medium.
Yep.
A lot of similar hand motions, like the trapping, the clearing, and his footwork, are similar to Southern Mantis. Now, would I say it's similar to Toph? Maybe not, because the way that it's, Toph's movements are used in the show.
It is close, though.
But it is close because the nature of how he moves is close to how Southern Mantis moves. Of course, in just a different medium. But as a
as a person.
As a person, it's kind of hard to pick a specific.
Yeah. For me, I know who I would pick. I'm going to pick Jeff Speakman, who's a good friend of mine.
Oh,
I knew the Campbell people. I knew Ed Parker, Barbara Hale, and Brian Hawkins, and all those people. Jeff, who I knew, he had just the right amount of spunkiness and attitude. At the same time, he practiced a system that had a lot of similarities to Southern Praying Mantis, because the original Kempo is like that, because it's a old style karate and Chinese kung fu from the Hawaiian Islands, right? And the attitude, when anyone who thinks Hawaii is just like this place where everyone is aloha and stuff, it's one of the toughest places that you could be at. People, you got nowhere to run. You got an island. You know what I mean? So, Jeff, I would say for me, the closest person to that, because I know him, I know his personality, I know him very well, and I can say that publicly, honestly. And I would say he reminds me more of the character Toph in so many ways. If you watch his movie Perfect Weapon, you get the Toph attitude in the guy.
Yes.
And I guess to put that as well, any especially female pro fighter that has a braggadocious attitude.
Oh yeah,
that's similar. So
wow. Okay, thank you, Momo.
Yeah,
that was really a lot of questions that were never asked before. This is really cool.
I'm having a blast.
That's good. That's great.
This is great. Earth Rumble 6 on our YouTube channel, we ranked it as one of the top fights in season 2 when we meet Toph. She's in the ring with all the fighters. So what was it like doing those sequences? Did you guys have input on any other Earthbenders in that? This was a question for Avatar Yang Chen, but I was also curious about what was it like filming an arena sequence?
No, I didn't have any influence on any of the other characters. I worked purely on Toph. Wow. And that would have been the
storyboard
privilege, storyboard and stuff like that. Would be more a question that Kishu would be able to answer about that. One of the things I like to say, and I've said this at many interviews, what I did is I never watched the show until the end. Wow. Because I didn't want watching the show to influence what I was doing, because it was successful. Everything was working very well. And I didn't want what I saw on the screen to influence what I was doing in my mind, because that's very different. What was in my imagination wasn't what was happening on the screen. So I didn't watch the full series until after the wrap-up party. That's something I should tell you guys. There was only the first 3 episodes that I watched at the premiere on Nickelodeon's lot. Wow. After that, I didn't watch a single show until it was done.
Okay.
Incredible.
Okay.
That should be an interesting thing that you should know. Yeah, and I did that intentionally.
And I guess this will be my last question. Sorry, I'll just throw it in there because, I'm just all these follow-up questions come up, and the flow keeps going. So I'm sorry, Tall. You can go after this. All you guys just bounce this.
Oh yeah, sure. I wear the t-shirt. You ask all the questions. Fine.
So from a legacy perspective, Toph she's a legend. I think will continue to go down in history, and you guys had a very significant hand in that. What legacy do you hope that your work on Avatar leaves for future fighters and future fans? This is again submitted by another fan, Boomer Ostro, but something that I want to know from your perspective, how does this live on?
Well, I'd like to say that Southern Praying Mantis wasn't a household style name. Like everyone knew Bruce Lee. Everybody, everyone and their grandmother knew what Wing Chun was because of Bruce Lee. It became a household name. I believe that the Avatar project actually burst open the concept of Southern Praying Mantis for the first time.
It was extremely rare and not talked about much before then.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was there was only like maybe, besides myself, and my teacher was alive at the time, in the whole country, maybe 4 or 5 teachers in all of the United States.
Even now, there's not many Chuga.
Chuka? Oh no, Chuka.
There's more Chalga, but even now there's still not many Chuga.
There's Chalga and Juklum.
Yeah.
But Chuka, besides myself right now, that there's my Kung Fu brothers. So maybe 3 or 4 people, places in the United States where you could learn this system.
Incredible.
And then for me, it's like, the same thing. Like, like how, for example, I brought up how Bruce Lee brought forward my love for martial arts when I was younger.
Yep.
I'm hoping, that Toph does the same thing, right, for others, and continues to do the same thing. That it can ignite that passion in someone else. So.
Yeah. But I'd like to also add to that. It was like Kisu brought it up in an interview, where he said, a lot of these commercial martial arts studios should be thanking the Avatar project because it caused many of the young kids wanting to learn martial arts after Avatar became known international in scope. I mean, kids wanted to do Tai Chi and the 5 animals. I mean, it was like a big difference. A lot of people made a lot of money while the project was on because a lot of kids wanted to sign up and actually do it. That was definitely a boom for the martial arts industry.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right, Paul.
Personally, I'm learning Bagua. And
that was depicted in the series as well.
Yeah. Because coincidentally, my Sifu's got us learning Bagua, and then I started doing demonstrations at conventions, doing workshops.
Oh, fun!
What it is like? Yeah. So now it's raising the bar because of Avatar.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about Bagua is the concept of the circling.
Yes.
We do that in Southern Praying Mantis, although we use the dog step, and it looks a little different, but the philosophy of circling, swallowing the enemy like in a dog fight, that's why it's called the dog step, because you're moving like this.
That's actually one of the only movements I don't think Toph ever did. But it's kind of hard to do that if you're using
because of the
long
distance.
range fighting.
Yeah, there's distance. But the idea, the philosophy, and the concept are interrelated in that way.
Very close. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, you have something to ask?
Well, we're coming down to the end of it within the next couple of minutes. I just wanted to say, I really don't have any more questions. I just want to say thank you guys for, inviting us into your lives. Like, you guys provided so much insight and feedback to the Avatar universe, into your own personal lives as well. Like, a lot of that, everything that you guys talked about today sounds like a whole nother universe. Like that sounds like books, more books that come out. And just, it was very creative. So a lot of stuff that you guys share. So I want to thank you wholeheartedly for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for the invite. And Nadar, I hope I get
to
meet you in person again. Because I've met you about 3 or 4 times at at Comic-Con. Yeah, Comic-Con. I think, were you at MomoCon? I don't remember.
Only San Diego.
Only San Diego. Okay, Comic-Con. Okay, yeah, that's where I met you most the times I was there. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm hoping to meet.
We still have to find those videos and send it to you too.
Oh, that would be lovely. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I'm hoping to meet you guys in person, just as friends.
Oh, that would be lovely.
Yeah,
that would be perfect. Yeah. Where are you living?
I'm living in Toronto.
Oh, Toronto! Hey.
Yeah.
Oh, Canada.
Yeah, Canada. But, this this whole trade war thing going on. It's kind of
No, that's right. I don't want to even address any of that.
Well, if you ever come to California to go to Disneyland or Universal, right, we're really right here. So
Disneyland. Why do I want to do that when I can meet you guys and we can share
do
wisdom
both.
and food? Come on, right? Show it how
Yeah,
it's really
I'm hoping that maybe in the future, maybe this will stimulate a couple of things where we can still do seminars and stuff. And so that would be really cool. The when I was a kid going to school in Manhattan, I was educated by French nuns from Canada and France. So I have a heart for Canada, right? You know, so. Parlez un peu du français, you know. So.
Okay.
Wow, but
Yeah, Dorian.
we also want to send a thanks to the Avatar Discord for letting us have this talk here. It's great because a lot of people can join in. The chat was really just going off, and like we were just so happy to meet you. I think you guys provided a really interesting, cool, and awesome insight and introspective look into the series that we're all here for, the series that we all love. So
thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us. And the questions were really great.
Absolutely.
I've never been asked some of those questions, and were really cool. Yeah.
Yay,
Thank you.
That's my first. All right. Well, thank you again. Again, and if you want, you can follow. You can follow them on Instagram at Red Dragon Kung Fu Chuka SPM. So yeah, and I think that closes our interview. So we don't want to take a bunch of your time, but once again, thank you.
Yeah, well, you're not. You take care, and God bless all your endeavors. May you be so successful during this year of the wood snake. And
right.
And may all the saints shine on all your projects.
Amen.
Thank you. Well, I dance it up this time, okay?
Okay.
Thanks everybody for joining us, both live on our YouTube as well as here in Discord. You know where to find us. We are Avatar Origins, Tales of the Fan Base. We thank Rico for leading the way on this one. He is our martial artist expert. So, yeah, this was great.
I'm not expert. I'm still a student for life. But
hey,
yeah, we all are.
Yes.
This is great. I'm about to go take my daughter to Taekwondo practice. So.
Fun.
Cool.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a pleasure, but I think we're gonna call it here. Thanks everybody in the chat. Thank you, Sifu, Joshua, and Sigung Manny. Thank you, Earthbender, for letting me interject many times. Thank you, Rico, for just doing the thing and leading the show.
All right, take care. God bless everybody.
All right, bye.
All right,
everybody.
thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.